Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Welcoming you all to a new tutorial series of Python programming. I am with you MD Shajadur Ahmed, and today we are going to discuss about the introduction part of Python programming as beginner. So let's start. These are our discussion topics of today's. In this tutorial we will try to cover all those things. So let's start with the introduction. So Python is an interpreted, interactive, object-oriented and high-level programming language developed in early 90s. So it is actually at the same time interactive, interpreted, object-oriented and high-level programming language. So Python is a general purpose programming language that is often applied in scripting roles. So what is scripting? It can be a question. So we will discuss it in after one or two slides. So just be patient. Python is designed to be highly reliable. It uses English keywords frequently, whereas other language uses punctuation. And it has fewer syntactical construction than other language. So it has actually a very small list of syntax, whereas as we all know that in other language there are a lot of syntax are available, and if we make any mistake in the syntax, then our program will give us error. Okay, so history of Python. Invented in the Netherlands early 90s by Guido van Rossum. Python was conceptualized in the late 1980s and its implementation was started in December 1989. Guido van Rossum is a big fan of Monty Python's Flying Circus, a famous TV show in Netherlands. So he is so big fan of Monty Python as he named his invented language as Python. Nearly all known Python software initially developed by Guido van Rossum and released in 1991. So here we are the difference between programming and scripting language. So as we know, program is executed, that is the source is first compiled and the result of the compilation is executed. On the other hand, in scripting, a script is interpreted. A script is code written in a scripting language. So it is actually a code written in a scripting language. In programming, a program in general is a sequence of instructions written so that the computer can perform a certain task. We all know that program is actually a list of or sequence of instructions. On the other hand, a scripting language is nothing but a type of programming language in which we can write code to control another software application. So in scripting language we can also control other software application as well. Okay, so scopes of Python. We can say that scopes of Python is actually very broad, as we all know that Python is everywhere, but there are some specific areas mentioned here. We cannot mention all those areas because it will take a lot of time, but we have mentioned some of them, like in science, like bioinformatics and artificial intelligence, in system administration, in web application development like CGI, in software development, in system scripting and gaming, robotics and more. So why Python? Why we are actually trying to move into Python from certainly from other languages like Java and from C++. So these are the things that Python provides, so that we move on to, and everyone actually moving on to Python. So Python work in different platform, that means it is platform independent. Python has a simple syntax similar to the English language, that is it is very easier to learn. Python has syntax that allows developer to write program with fewer lines than some other programming language, as it have a very fewer syntax, so the program take very fewer lines and it is very easy to write actually. Python run on an interpreter system, meaning that the code can be executed as soon as it is written. So it does not take too much time to execute. As soon as you complete writing your code, just we can finish executing it. This means that prototype can be very quick. So prototype can be prepared in very quick time. Python can be treated in a procedural way an object-oriented way or a functional way. So in every way Python can be treated. So you can say it is actually all-rounder programming language. Okay, so Python code execution, how actually Python code execute. So Python's traditional runtime execution model, source code you type is translated to bytecode. So first of all, the source code is actually translated to bytecode, and then which is then run by the Python virtual machine PVM. Your code is automatically compiled, but then it is interpreted. So it is actually automatically compiled and then it is interpreted. So you can see the stage of the compilation or the code execution. First of all, the source code is actually converted into bytecode, and then it is with the help of the PVM, Python virtual machine, it is executed. So the source code extension is .py Python, and the bytecode extension is .pyc compile Python code. So syntax of Python. So as we said that it has a very few syntax. We don't need to start with like main function or something else. We can just print whatever, or we can just write the particular part that actually we are intended to execute. Like we are trying to execute or trying to give an output like hello world. So we just need to write this only, and then we will get a output like hello world. So starting with this syntax and then print, and inside the braces, inside the double quotation or single quotation, just write down whatever you actually intended to give output to the user, and then Python will does that for you. Or you are trying to do a summation or addition, so just write down the two numbers that you are actually trying to add, and then Python will give you the summation result. So relevant output is displayed in subsequent line without this symbol. So you can see that when the output is shown, it is actually shown without this symbol. So once you install any of the Python IDE, you can type code easily than before. So if you have a Python IDE on your computer, then you can type Python program very easily than ever. Like you don't need to use this kind of symbol as now. So just write down print and hello world, then Python IDE will display the hello world. So it is as simple as it is. Variables in Python. So variables are container for storing data values. Python has no command for declaring a variable. So there are no actually predefined variables in Python, rather than a variable is defined the moment you assign a value in it. So you can see from the example 40 as we know, 40 is the integer value and 40 is assigned to x, so x become a integer type variable, and here we are assigning Bangladesh, so inside the quotation, so it is a string, so string type, that means we are assigning a string type value to x, then x become a string variable. So that's how actually Python works. We does not actually need to define before starting the code, but we can do it when we actually assign values to the to any of the variables. So depending on the value of the variable, types is defined. So it depends on the values. Then after depending on the value, the types is actually defined. And now if you try to print the values of x variable, just write down print x, or you can check the type of the x variable, then just need to write down print and then type x, then it will show the type, that means in this case it will be string, so type of the x is string. So built-in data type, there are some built-in data type in Python, like if it is text type, then it is treated as data type as string. If it is numerical, then it is integer type, float type or complex type. If it is sequence, then list, tuple or range. If it is mapping type, then it will be directories. If it is set types, and then set or frozen set. If it is boolean, then only boolean. If the formation is binary types, then bytes or byte array or memory view. So there are different types of data types, but as we said that we don't need to define variables in the beginning of a program. Rather than when we assign a value, then the value will define what kind of variable. So arithmetic operators, these are nothing new. We all know from the C programming what are the arithmetic operator, like plus, minus and multiplication. This one is actually used for division. If there are two forward slash, then it is actually one kind of division, and in this time we are actually taking the floor value. This percentage symbol actually used as modulus, and double when we use double star, it is used as power. So these are nothing new things. Okay, so then the relational operator, these are also the same things we have actually deal with in other programming language, like greater than symbol, less than symbol, and equal symbol, not equal symbol, and so on. Let's move into next the assignment operator. So we all use the assignment operator. This is equal to operator, and plus and equal to, if we use this one, then a plus equal to b, it means a equal to a plus b, and similar things for this one, a minus equal to b, that means a equal to a minus b, and so on. So we are actually not discussing this thing in brief, because we all know it, and we have all executed this kind of things in other programming languages. So let's move forward. So now print function. So we have already seen how to print in Python. Just we have to use the print, and whatever we are intended to just write down inside the braces and inside the quotation. So here we are actually the built-in print function displayed its arguments as a line of text. So you can see when we put welcome to Python inside a braces and inside the quotation, it will display as a argument list or line of text as welcome to Python. And printing a comma separated list of items. So if we are trying to print a comma separated list of items, like first of all welcome, then comma, then 2, then comma, then Python, then it will display like this, welcome to Python. And then printing many lines of text with one statement where the backslash appear in the string, it's known as the escape character. So the backslash is actually known as the escape character, or in other words we actually use as a new line character as well. So see here, we are actually write down here welcome, then forward backslash, that means new line, 2, then again new line, Python. That means it will display like this. First of all welcome, and then there will be a new line, and then 2, and there will be 2 new lines. So first new line and second new line, and then Python. So we can do this in by just using on print function. So now let us see some list of escape sequence. So first of all, as we have seen that new line character, so insert a new line character in the string when the string is displayed. For each new line, move the screen cursor to the beginning of the next line. Then if you want to insert a horizontal tab, you just to type \t, then it will move the screen cursor to the next tab. If you want to display a backslash in the screen, then you have to write down to backslash. If you want to display a double quotation or single quotation in the display, then you have to start with the backslash and then double quotation and single quotation. It will display in the output section as a double quotation or single quotation, as you mentioned in the portion. That's how actually escape sequence are working. Okay, now printing expression with escape sequence. So there are some expression, and we are trying to use some escape sequence. As you can see in first case, we are actually trying to give an output like sum is 7 plus 3, that means 10. So you can see in the output sum is 10, and then again you can give and display into the output display like a text like display and then high, but in this time you wanted to put the high inside a single quotation, so that's why we have used / then single quotation. Third case, we are actually trying to display a double quotation, so that's why we have used double quotation after the /. And in fourth case, we have actually trying to display we are actually using 3 quotation at the beginning of the text and at the end of the text. So it is not a problem if we put 3 quotation, but it is problem if we put 3 quotation at the beginning but 1 or 2 quotation at the end, then it will show an error. Okay, so it is allowed to use single quotation or double quotation or something like that, but it will be same as the start and same as the at the end. Okay, so getting input from the user. So see, here is the advantage of Python. In other programming language, when we are actually trying to take input, then we have to include some libraries in C programming as well, and also in Java we need to add some library like scanner class. But in Python we just need to write down use the syntax of input, and after input whatever we actually put in the inside braces, it will display into the output screen to the user, and then whatever input or whatever value the user will input into, it will be moved forward to this variable. So this variable is automatically treated as a string. So now like we are giving an output, what's your name, so it will display in outside screen, and then user will input his name like Paul, and now we are actually just print out the value of this string variable and it will display Paul. So as simple as that. See how easy to use to get input from the user, but in other language it is so difficult, so difficult, as we all know. Now let's say we are actually taking 2 values from user, so we are asking first value from the user and then asking second value from the user, and then we are actually trying to concatenate those 2 values, not adding or not actually providing summation, rather than we are actually concatenating like 7 and 3, so the display should be 73. So that's what we are actually doing, that add equal to value 1 this variable and then plus value to this variable, and then we are printing add, because the concatenation of those 2 variable is actually now replaced in add, and so the output will see like this 73. So it is actually very easy things to do, very easy things to learn. So Python, that's why we're actually moving on to Python. Then multiple input from user, so we can also take allowed to take multiple input from the user. So just we have to take 2 string, and then after input we need to use the split syntax, so that whatever input user will give, it will be splitted and will replace into 2 different these 2 variables, like 5 will be replaced or 5 will be placed in A and 10 will be placed in B, and if we print A and B all together, it will display 5 and 10. And now again, if we are actually trying to check the type of A, because A is a string, so it will say class string, so that means A is a string type variable. So now we will discuss about object and dynamic typing. So you can see that in first snippets we said type 7 and we'll get an output like int. So this is int is our object and the value of object is actually 7. In second snippets we said that type 4.1 and we get an output of float. So the object is float type and we get the value of object is 4.1 and so on. So so value such as 7 is integer, 4.1 is a floating point number, and dog is a string are all objects. So these are objects. Every object has a type and a value. So like this is an object and it is integer object and it has a value which is 7. An object value is the data stored in the object. So the 7 is stored in the int type object, so that is why it is called as object value. The snippets above shown object of Python built-in types int, float and string. So these are all built-in types objects of Python actually. Okay, so now we are going to discuss about variable referred to an object. So assigning an object to a variable binds or associate the variable name to the object. So that means here we are actually assigning an object which is type of int to a variable name which is x, and then if we does that, we can access the value of the object through the variable which is x and the value is 7. So that's what actually called a variable referring to an object. So in this case we find out the object is actually type of int and the variable name is x, and through the x variable we can access the value of the object, and the value of the object is 7. And this is just a formal procedure. After snippets force assignment, the variable x refers to the integer object containing 7. So in snippets 4 you can see that the variable x is actually assigned to a object value which is 7. As shown in the snippet 6, in the snippet 6 you can see we are actually trying to print the variable value of the variable x, and it will show that the value is 7 which is integer and it is an integer type object. So snippet 5 does not change the x value, although we have used the value of x, or although we have used the variable x, but it does not mean that the value will be changed. So that's how it works. So if we want to actually change the value of x, we can does that by following this procedure. So in that case we have to add x with 10 and then put the summation in the x, then the value of x or the value of x variable will be changes, but still it is having a values which is actually integer type value, and we can say that it is still integer type object. So now dynamic typing. So Python use dynamic typing to determine the type of object a variable refers to while executing your code. We can show this by rebinding the variable x to different object and checking their types. So if we are rebinding x with integer type object, then it will show x, and if we will variable of the object like 4.1, then we check to see the type of the object, and then it will say that now x is bounded to an object which is floating type. In this case it will say that x is bounded with an object which is actually string type. So this is what actually called dynamic typing. The type of x is actually dynamically changing, so that's why it is called dynamic typing. So Python actually allowed dynamic typing. So that's all from the slide. So if you have any question, any queries, there are some forum of Python where you can ask and have your answer very frequently. These online forum links are provided here, so you can use this, or also you can ask me your question in the comment section as well. So that's all from the first tutorial of Python. Inshallah we'll meet in next tutorial. Till then everyone, stay safe, stay home. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.